أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمد ونصلي على رسول الكريم. My dear listeners all around the world, I welcome you to another episode of my show, Great Muslim Inventions. To all my brothers, sisters who are fasting Ramadan Kareem, and may Allah bless all of the listeners and have mercy and give them health, wealth in this dunya and the akhirah. Ameen. Uh, Dear listeners, today I'll be giving some interesting prizes as well. Whoever will call, who are calls in the radio or on our studio. So our studio number is 01902 972 150. So I repeat that 01902 972 150. So I'd encourage you to call and answer a few questions relating to our program, and then you'll be able to win the exciting prizes. So, listeners, today we're going to discuss about the things which were invented as a cultural thing, and that was the fine dining. Fine dining was introduced by a very, very famous mathematician. He was a fashion icon of his time. And if I tell you the name, you will think of about a name of of a restaurant. His name, or he's famous by the name of Ziryab. Yeah, that's how he was. His name was famous, and I'm sure in many countries, in many Muslim countries, you'll go and you'll find this Ziryab restaurant. So that's where the name it come from, Ziryab. Uh, he was born in Iraq, Baghdad, and then he moved to in the later stages when to Spain, Indonesia, or Andalus. So uh, he was the first one to introduce the three-course meal which we have in the restaurant in our homes. Uh, so in the 19th century, when he moved to Andalus in Cordoba, Andalus in the city Cordoba, he said that the meal should start with a soup and followed with a main course, either a fish or meat, and then it's finished off with a dessert like fruit and nuts. So usually it became a very popular among the Muslims. So when the Muslims they were ruling the Andalusia, Spain, the northern part of these Spain or Cordoba, uh, they also started following this trend. Mostly, and the one great thing about that was the Muslims at that time they used to have two different types of meal, one meal for the winter and one meal for the summer. So the typical winter meals include, most of them include vegetables like beetroot, cauliflower, turnips, parsnips, carrots, coriander, peas, broad beans, lentils, chickpeas, especially olives, pasta, and nuts. So usually they were eaten with made dishes. So all of these vegetables either they are cooked separately and then mixed with the meat, and then the dessert usually consists of the dried fruits such as figs, dates, raisins, uh, and prunes. Okay, and then they're just followed by juices. So these juices are made of syrups of jasmine, fruit pastels, gums, and while they were having these three-course meal because they were so organic, okay, so there was no problem in their diet. They don't have the stomach diseases related to stomach diseases. They don't have stomach bugs, and the factor of obesity was not there at that time because the food, everything they were eating was organic. So in the summertime, they have 11 types of green beans. So just imagine 11 types of green beans. So that's their summer diet. Uh, Radishes, lettuces, uh, aubergines, carrots, cucumber, uh, you name it, and rice. Again, these vegetables they are mixed with meat, usually at that time in Cordoba was poultry, fishes, beef products, and ostriches as well. And in the desert, in that summertime, there were things, juices made of lime, fresh lime, lemon juice, nectarines, mulberries, cherries, plums, apricot, grapes, pomegranate, watermelon, you name it. Okay, so these drinks they were made from the syrups of these fruits and the preservatives of the fruit pastels like lemon, rose, or jasmine. What Jazir Yab did after introducing this three-course meal, he introduces the tablecloth. Okay, we should call it as a dastarkhan in Urdu and in Persian. So the concept of this introducing a tablecloth or tableware or a dastarkhan uh, was because the Muslim we still try to sit on the floor and eat our food because it's the sunnah of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So instead of having something very plain or uh, something with no design or color, he made that tablecloth, okay, which we use now. We go and buy in the stores or in the markets. We try to find the tablecloths, okay, which is beautiful and easy to clean and whatever. And when we eat on it, it gives you a good feeling, but just by looking at it. So that's why he invented the tablecloths. What else he did was he introduces the pottery and the design on the glasses. Okay, he presented that theory. So before I go into the detail about uh, the crystal crockery he introduced and to to go on with them to cook the meal and to go on that dastarkhan. Uh, the ruler of the Spain or Undulus at that time is given as a job, okay, where at that time, okay, I'm talking about the 9th and 10th century, okay, so he was given 200 golden dinars for his services, okay. With him, he bought fine etiquettes, cooking, fashion, and toothpaste. So imagine how famous he was at that time. He was that famous that even the Christian majority area in the Spain and in France, okay, people were uh, doing the trade with Andalusia at that time, things which are designed on by his experience or by his experiments. Uh, in the later part of his life, there was another man called Abbas ibn Farnas. It was before him, 887. Uh, what he did, he experimented with the sand and rocks and made turn them into the glass crystals. He used those crystals, okay, in making different uh, crockeries like potteries, the clay, the dishes, the jars, the flask, and it was a big hit because that was the first time the crystal was introduced in any of the cookingware or kitchenware. Uh, he used the same glass, okay, to construct a planetarium. If you go on some educational site or in science museum, there's usually a chamber where you sit and you watch the moving of the stars and planetarium. So he used that glass in the ninth century to to do his own planetarium. Okay, and he was showing like the artificial cloud, thunder, and lightning in the ninth century. So this is something very, very amazing. When I was doing this research, I wasn't aware of that, and I was like, wow. In the ninth century, imagine someone is showing you a planetarium, how the stars moving, how the clouds, how the thunder is happening. It was just really, really fascinating, and it was a buzz in furnace. Uh, Zaria follow his designs, and he made that in different designs. So where the Muslim rulers in the Spain or in Andalusia when there's pottery, ceramics, and glasses, and they were getting very famous. And like I said, they were going to the Christian-dominated region of Spain and the southern France and Italy. They used these um, these cookingware or kitchenware laid the foundation of famous Maiolia, where which went on dominating the Italian ceramic industry. So Italy, those of you don't know, has a big ceramic industry. That's one of their major part of income in their economy, and that was established during that Andalusia time. So after glass and jugs and jars, they also started doing the decoration on the earthenware and the plates, the design that look like precious metal. So that's how nowadays you see the plastic wares or plastic plates, and they design like a glass. I mean, once you look from a far distance, it looks like a glass made of a glass or a ceramic. Or when you go and you pick it up, or say, "Oh, it is a plastic." So, at that time, they were designing the earthware, which looks like a precious metal, and they the and that time the whole Europe was called a dark ages, but that was a time when all part of the Europe they were coming to Andalusia or Undulus or Spain to learn about the science, the engineering, the etiquettes, the fashion, all from Andalusia. So before I go to the Riyadh as a fashion icon, uh, I want to talk about his three-course meal, three-course menu. Uh, we all know that the Muslims, when they were defeated in Indonesia, and many of them have to leave, and most of them were killed. What the Spanish people or Spanish army they didn't burn any of the books or that literature which Muslim scientists wrote. Like when the Mongols they conquered Baghdad, they just burned all the libraries and all the hard work and experiment, all that research was gone. So, but the Spanish they kept it, and slowly with the time they started translating it into their languages, and they're starting making the new inventions from based on those research and principles. So coming back to the three-course meal, at that time it was usually a starter soup. Uh, it is a meat soup with cabbage. Uh, main meal is roast tagine uh, or a fish tharid or and the or roast chicken. Their their drinks, sweet drinks or desserts, mostly consist of a soup of a pomegranate or watermelon. I will tell you one easy recipe, which in 13th century Charles Perry He translated it from Arabic into English. No one knows who wrote that book, or maybe the author name was deliberately related. We don't know. So in the 13th century, Charles Perry, one of the author, he translated those cookbooks found in Indonesia by an unknown author, and he translated that three-course meal. So one of them was a meat soup with a cabbage. So if in the iftar you wanted to try, you can note down the recipe of this meat soup. So what he did is just cut the meat in a small pieces as fine as possible. So hand chop, not use a machine, hand chop. Take some old cheese or the best cheese in the market you can buy. Fry the onions, okay, a very little, with a little bit of oil, okay. Chop the onions, fry them with cilantro. May put all these cheese pieces of meat, very lightly oil fried onions, into a pot. Then boil a cabbage, okay, and when it's tender, take the eyes of the cabbage out and also put them in the pot, and then boil, and then bring that mixture to boil at least once or twice. Add some muri, vinegar, pepper, and a caraway. Cover the lid of the pot with some dough and simmer it for at least, it depends upon the meat. So if you're using a chicken meat, it's half an hour. If you're using a beef or a mutton, it's an hour or hour, quarter, 1.5 hour. Depends upon the flame and the amount of which part of the meat you're cooking. So yeah, if you have noted down this recipe, yeah, why not try this in today's after. One of my favorite when I was doing this research, I found again Charles Perry, his translation. There was one thing which I found really good as well. Apart from the soup, it's the roast chickens. Okay, so what they use today, they take the young fat chicken, which we call in Urdu as a chuza, clean and boil them in a pot of water with salt and spices. That's some of us do as well. Okay, but take them out of the pour and pour the broth with the fat in a dish, and then add to it what has been said for roast over coals. Okay, so you can roast them over the coals, rub that into the boil hand, and then arrange it on a spit, and then turn it over a moderate fire with a continuous movement, basically until you, like we do the barbecue, until it's look cooked. It tastes nicer with the livestock meat, okay, and more than if you're using a frozen chicken. So it's best if you buy a fresh chicken from the market, and you can have any other bird roasted exactly the same time. So basically, just clean it and boil it with water, salt, spices, and you then just uh, use the coal to roast it over, like we do now. So if any of you haven't tried the syrup or the juice of pomegranates, I think go and buy the pomegranates and try the fresh pomegranate juice in iftar today. Um, they don't use at that time. They don't use to add sugar in the syrups because they're already sweet, and probably what I think the fruits at that time, because they were just all organic, so they were more tastier and more got more juice in it. So that's one of the reason maybe they never had anything with sugar in it, which is again tells them their diet, how their diet is good and why their diet was good. So moving back to the uh, next invention. uh, I want to talk a little bit more about the Ziryab. Uh, because of his etiquettes and manners and everything, The ruler of Undulus, he invited him to come uh, to Spain. And when he went to Spain, he changed so many things which are become a fashion nowadays. And one of them is the shoes. So Zaryab, apart from being an astronomer, chemist, and a philosopher, he was also a good musician, and he was an etiquette teacher. If you go on the Islamic history, any authentic websites, or you read about the Islamic history, you will find that in every era of the Muslim, there was an etiquette teacher, which we are missing now. So we go to school, we learn about science, English, maths, whatever subjects, yeah. But there are no teacher who teaches etiquettes. Well, yes, it is a job of parents as well. But in the school, in the madaris of that time, the people used, there was a teacher specifically who used to teach the etiquettes. Just like in the army or the royal family, there are people who teach. So someone is born into the royal family or get married into the royal family. There is a specific person or team of people who teach that newcomer the etiquettes of being royal. So Ziryab was one of the etiquette teachers, and he was the trendsetter and a style icon in the 19th century in the city called Cordoba in Spain. He brought with him all the fashion from Baghdad, and at that time, the Baghdad was like a Paris or New York of its day. That's how it was famous. So uh, you can you will think, okay, so it was, he was doing like a Paris Fashion Week or a New York Fashion Week, but that was in Baghdad. All of his items, all of his inventions were presented uh, in the fashion show. Sorry, I was just thinking about. I thought it was disconnect. No, that's fine. Okay. Uh, One of the BBC researcher, Rageh Umar, he presented a BBC documentary called An Islamic History of Europe. And he said that Cordoba at that time had a street lighting when the rest of the Europe was dark. Okay. They have the best sewage works and the running water. So the water is running from the dams and running to the people home. That's how talented Zuryab was. So he created all these things into the Spain. So apart from bringing fashion and everything, he is also renowned and an accelerated man with a good taste, and his name was connected with elegance. He is also one who's invented the toothpaste and brought the toothpaste into Spain, and he changed the hairstyle so people will start following his hairstyle, which was short, and he also bought the leather furniture. So break is coming. I'll see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.